and welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And let's talk about Thunderbolts. Okay, in this really late movie review, we're going to talk about the latest, I guess, entry from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, it's months old because this is when I finally got around to seeing it. But Thunderbolts is a really good story about grief hidden under a pretty okay action movie. Okay. And I think the actual story here, the grief aspect of it is actually really interesting. The rest of it, yeah, it's kind of there. But let's dive in. We'll take a look at some of the characters, what's going on, where just the stuff I liked, okay? And we'll see where it goes. Okay. Now, I want to start with a couple of the characters because they're the ones that really drive things. First is Yelena Belova, who's the new Black Widow, who's at least as far as she's part of the Black Widow program. She was the sister of Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff. Okay. She's fun. She has a lot of good snark and stuff. When we met her in the movie Black Widow, yeah, we got to know her character fairly well, and we saw her again in Hawkeye, and yeah, she's fun. She's a really fun character, but she's going through some stuff right now. Okay. And we'll get to that in a minute, but she is the heart and soul of this movie. She is the main protagonist of Thunderbolts. And her story is really great to walk through, so we'll get to that. The other character that's a lot of fun is John Walker, he's U.S. agent, the former Captain America. If you saw Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which it's okay. He's the dude. He was picked to be the replacement for Steve Rogers by the government, because the government can do no wrong. Of course, they picked a guy who had 2 Congressional Medals of Honor and all of this stuff. Turns out he's also a big freaking jerk. And when he ended up giving himself the super soldier serum, it made it all worse. And that's an important aspect of things, too. We'll get to that. Okay. But those are really the only 2 characters that actually, I'm not going to say actually matter, but actually go anywhere. That have any sort of growth. And even Walker is a little bit shaky, okay? But he's a fun counter to Yelena, all right? Other characters, you got Ghost, who I think we last saw in Ant-Man 2, and she's fine. She's there sort of to be the third voice between Yelena and Walker, and that's about all she is. Every once in a while, they have her use her powers to do a thing, but she has 0 character growth other than, I'm a loner to, yeah, okay, I can hang out with this team for a while. That is about it, okay? That is her growth trajectory. It is pretty much flat, okay? There's nothing going on there. And then you've got Red Guardian, and he was, for all intents and purposes, Yelena's father. Not in any biological sense, but again, if you watched Black Widow, which you should, it's not a bad movie. He was a KGB spy, and he raised Natasha and Yelena as they were his kids. There's part of his cover, but for all intents and purposes, he was Yelena's dad. Okay, and he's just fun. He's just the guy he's totally missing the glory days. Okay, and we're gonna get into that too, because just about everybody on the so-called Thunderbolts team has lost something. The other person on the Thunderbolts who makes up the team, I guess, is the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. And what he has lost is personality. Okay. One day we hope that he will have personality again. But this is not the movie where it happens. I'm sorry, Bucky. This is not your movie. Yeah, he's there to sort of provide them the one moral kick in the butt. But that's sort of about it. He's just not. He is the one hero that shows them that yes, you can all be heroes. But that's about it. And oh yeah, he does a pretty good job of doing that without showing any sort of emotion and or personality. Which is too bad, because he's actually a fun character in the other shows he's been in. But sorry, no. So as we talk about characters who have lost things, Bucky at some point will get over his loss of personality. We'll deal with that. Yelena talks about it a little bit. She is dealing with the demons of her sister's death, right? The one thing that she had to hold on to was family, right? As with all of the garbage that went through her, or that she went through in her life, the things that basically kept her going were her sister and her father and her mother. But we know her mother, I can't remember actually if the mother died, but Yelena was really close to Alexei, her father. But when Natasha died, Yelena kind of spiraled. She had a purpose for a while. We saw it in Hawkeye. Her goal was to kill Hawkeye, right? Valentina Alexa DeFontaine, I think. Anyway, Val basically told us, okay, yep, Hawkeye killed your sister. Go do your thing. And Hawkeye is like, no, dude, I was her best friend. And it's okay. And so Yelena, of course, didn't kill Hawkeye because that would have been expensive. But actually, it would have been cheaper than trying to lowball Jeremy Renner on season 2, I suppose. But anyway, she's goes through that and realizes, okay, she's worked through the anger stage of her grief. Now she's just dealing with the grief, or not dealing with the grief, and we're going to get to that because that's sort of important. Walker is dealing with the fact that he's pretty much just lost his family. I mean, he hit his high in Falcon and Winter Soldier. He was getting married, or I can't remember if he was getting married. He was married. They were having their first kid. He was named Captain America. He was riding high, and he lost it all. He let his anger take hold of him, and he beat a person to death with the Captain America shield. Okay, that was not great, right? And because of what happened throughout that movie, and yes, he wants to be a good person. He's just a jerk. Okay, he's not Steve Rogers, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to be a hero, right? He liked being the hero. He just doesn't have that moral compass to do it when times are hard. Okay. But when all of this happens, the Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff happens, right? He is no longer the Captain America. That ends up falling over to Sam Wilson, Falcon. And ultimately he gets lost in wanting those days when he was the hero, right? He actually references it once here in the in Thunderbolts is that, you know, he was the star quarterback of the state champion or national champion football team or whatever, right? He likes that high. He likes being the hero. He likes all the glory of being a hero. And he lost all of that. Okay, so he's lost everything that meant anything to him. In a lot of ways, he and the Red Guardian have a lot in common as well. The Red Guardian didn't fall from grace. He just fell into obscurity. He lost his purpose. Okay. Now, one could argue that maybe being a super soldier for the Soviet Union and KGB is maybe not the best purpose. But he was there. He liked being the hero. He liked saving people. And he loved his family. He loved Yelena. But he was, I think he was sort of ashamed of where he's fallen to. Right? Now he's basically just he drives a limo. And that's about it. Right? He's not the hero. He's whether he ever was one or not, we can debate, but in his mind, he's no longer the Soviet Captain America. He's just an old fat guy who drives a limo and can't get the work that he wants, right? He begs Yelena at one point for Val's number so he could maybe get a job with her doing, well, okay, maybe not so great stuff, but at least superpower work, right? It's a sort of like The Incredibles, which does a much better job of telling that story than Thunderbolts does, but of Mr. Incredible, who really was a hero, wants to be the hero, and can't be the hero. Okay, so, right, he's dealing with that. And then you've got Bob. And Bob is an interesting character. I don't think we get to spend enough time with him. But we know he came from about every broken side of life that you could come through, right? His mom had mental health issues. His father was abusive. He was a meth addict. And it ended up when they needed somebody to test a new superhero type serum on, it's like, well, fine, I could use the money. Maybe I'll get more drugs out of it. Who knows? And he managed to survive the treatments and actually got all the powers. So he is a really messed up Superman in a lot of ways, right? He can fly. He's invincible. He's got all his telekinetic powers. The dude is sort of all powerful. But there's a big but here, okay? And we are not talking about anybody's posterior. Bob's got problems, okay? Now, all of these characters, right, they're going through some form of grief and trauma. They're all dealing with it. Except for Bucky, who went through his trauma in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now he's just there. So let's jump back to Captain America: The First Avenger for a moment. Okay, in that movie, little tiny CG Steve Rogers wants to enlist to fight World War II because he is a good guy who wants to help people. That is what he is. He is the guy who will stand up and fight for the little guy even when he has no chance of winning, because it's the right thing to do. He is the guy who will do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because it's easy. And they talk about a couple of times throughout that movie that the super soldier serum amplifies everything about a person. Yes, they bulk up and get glamour muscles that everybody drools over or wants to be able to drool over or something, right? But it also amplifies a person's personality. So when you have somebody who is genuinely a good person, who wants to be that good person, you get Steve Rogers, Captain America, who is, in a lot of ways, the epitome of what a hero should be. The guy who will stand up for what is right because it's right, even when his friends tell him he's wrong, which goes into then Civil War and all that fun stuff. Okay. Awesome. But Bob was a wreck. He was a wreck in multiple ways. And he talks about a couple of times having some sort of mental health issue where he falls into this depressive state. And he's there for a couple of days. And then he comes out of it and he's fine. And he feels like he can be a hero. Right? He's like sort of that bipolar type ride. But when he comes out of it, he doesn't really remember what was going on when he was in that void state. The problem is he got these superpowers. And so his highs and lows are just as good. They're just as intense. And so when he gets talked into becoming the Sentry, right? The world's mightiest hero, all of the Avengers sort of wrapped up in one persona. He is great. Great. I like this. This is awesome. But then he has one of those moments of Val's telling him, okay, stop these guys. Okay. And he kind of does. So, all right, now kill them. So, why? They don't know threat to me. Yeah, but this is, I'm ordering you to. It's like, why does a god need to take orders from you? And Val realizes she's made a little bit of a mistake. Because in a lot of ways, he's right. Now, I'm not going to say he is moral. I'm not saying this is a moral stance, but not that helping Val would be a moral stance. But when he has that much power, the idea that, oh, this person's just going to order me around, it doesn't fly, right? He does. That argument doesn't. When you have that much power, what keeps you in line? It's your morality, right? Steve Rogers was a super soldier, but he was a good person. No one ever had to worry about Steve Rogers going rogue and just being a danger to the people around him. What they had to worry about him is going rogue and doing what he thought was the right thing and screwing up somebody else's idea of what's the right thing. Okay. Now, I have not seen the current Superman that came out here a month or so ago, a couple months ago. But I know part of the plot is here's Superman who he goes and stops a war because for him, stopping the war is the right thing to do. But that leads to all sorts of geopolitical consequences. Steve Rogers falls into that same sort of camp. Is he'll step in to stop the terrorists from doing the thing, which is good, but there's all sorts of geopolitics that falls into that sort of thing. Okay. That's a fun debate to have, but that's not where Sentry sits, right? And what ends up happening is his dark side also got juiced. And he falls into that depression, that level of darkness, which I thought they actually was portrayed beautifully on screen, of just the sort of silhouette of what he was. And it's like, why do you fight it? One of the soldiers is shooting at him, and he just looks at this. Why do you keep fighting? Why bother? And he voids the guy. just turns him into a black stain on the sidewalk. Doesn't actually kill him. He just sucks him into the void, really. This never-ending series of rooms of what did Yelena called it, like shame rooms. It's like, these are the worst parts of your life, and you are going to live here forever. Yeah, that's where he ends up. Okay. And honestly, okay, so this has sort of been all the story and stuff, but here's where the really interesting stuff comes in. It's 20 minutes into the podcast. Sorry about that. But the question is, right, we all have dark times in our lives, okay? We all have things that, you know, we're either somewhat ashamed of, just some sort of traumatic experience, actual grief, right? What do we do if we just choose to live in that darkness, right? And if we choose not to, how long can you just run from it? Okay, right? Because how you choose to get out of the darkness or to not be in that darkness is sort of the important part about it. That's part of what they try to tell in the story. And I think they do a pretty good job. It just takes 2 hours of interest it's an okay, it's not a fabulous action movie, but it's a pretty decent action movie to get there. Okay. And the question said, how long can you run from your darkness, and what happens when you stop running? Right? And that's kind of, this is where Yelena's story really shines, is she has been running from her darkness. She has this sort of opening monologue as you see her breaking into this building and all this fun stuff, doing this job to destroy this lab. And she says, you know, I don't know if, you know, I do go to work and I come home and there's nothing really there, you know, there's just sort of, everything's just sort of void, or maybe I'm just bored. Okay. This is a classic sign of depression, right? I've been there. I totally recognize this. On top of that, she had two real anchors in life. Natasha, who's now dead, and this is part of Yelena's problem, is she's lost her sister forever this time, and she doesn't know how to cope with that. But she also lost her father because Alexei, the Red Guardian, has withdrawn himself because he's too ashamed he's ashamed of himself, and because of that, he's too ashamed to be with Yelena. He talks about it's been like a year since they've talked. Okay. And Yelena needs that anchor in her life. So she needed the help to get through that. And this is what ends up happening, is how they end up solving the problem. Is Yelena steps into the void to find Bob in that void and help him work his way out of the darkness. Help him to stop being the void. There we go. And be just Bob. Not the Sentry. Just Bob. Just the guy who's had a rough life and needs help. And as they go through, you know, Yelena finds him and talks to him. It's right. He ends up fighting himself, right? His void, and he's beaten the living garbage out of his void self. But as he's doing it, he is turning that same sort of black of the void. It's just, no, this is what it wants. It wants you to become it. Right? The depression wants you just to be depressed. Okay? And it's weird attributing, you know, human feelings and like anthropomorphizing a feeling. But that visualization isn't a bad way of looking at it, right? because depression, if you think of depression as a being, depression is a liar. Depression lies to you. It tells you you have nothing. It tells you you are nothing. It tells you that it's nothing you do is worth anything. And that's what all of these characters are going through. And as they do come together and coalesce into a team of some sort, Yelena realizes that, no, she's not nothing. There's actually something more that she can be. And when she finds Bob, what she is somebody who's been there, somebody who can care, somebody who can help him. And that's what Bob needs, is he just needs somebody to tell him, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to live in this darkness. Yes, it's there. All of your history is still there. He's still abused. He was still a meth addict. He has some mental illness. I think they sort of explain. But it's like, no, we can do this. And Walker, the rest of the team came in to help, and Walker's also right there with her. It's like, no, Bob, I'm here. We can do this. Now, I'm not entirely sure Walker's totally on that emotional level. He may just be holding him back because he can. And Yelena needs help holding him back. But they realize that together they can work through their own demons. And they do, right? And it's great. Now, John Walker is still a jerk. Okay. Bucky still has not figured out where he left his personality. Ghost is also there. Red Guardian is excited. He's got his picture on the Wheaties box. He gets to be the hero again. He's still sort of in obscurity because nobody knows who he is. But also the fact he shaves off his beard and it's like, okay, now what? But they've sort of come together to be the new Avengers, right? That's the asterisk. They are, whether they want it to be or not, they are the new Avengers. And yeah, that leads to a fun end credit scene where they're arguing about Sam, who's reforming the Avengers and is copywriting the name. Turns out he's actually probably trademarking the name because copyright. Anyway, legal weirdness aside, right? But they've sort of come together to be a team. But they scroll the headlines, right, as that first wave of credits, and it's like, are they really the Avengers? Do we really trust them to be Earth's mightiest heroes? Can they even do it? Who are these idiots? Right? Lot of questions, but they are the official Avengers, complete with the A patch on their arm and all that stuff, right? So, yeah. But that growth, that whole story, if you just sit and watch this for Yelena's story and Alexi's stories a little bit as well, really, and Bob, and how they deal with their grief and how they help each other through their grief, that is a really good aspect of the story. That part is amazing. The rest of it, it's fine. Val is there. She's slimy. And it's awesome. But she's not the type of supervillain that you're gonna come back to and say, oh yes, she is the huge threat. She's not. She's just this slimy, power-hungry bureaucrat. Which, to be fair, is more of a villain in today's world than a lot of those people that we see. But at least we get to see some of these characters as they realize, no, maybe we actually are better together, and maybe we can help each other through some of the problems. And if you follow that story, it's actually really good. So yeah, Thunderbolts it's sort of a mid-tier movie just in general. But I think it's better than the last Captain America movie. There's actually some sort of character progression here, which I never felt there really was anything in the last one. Uh, but it's definitely worth watching. It's streaming now. You can watch it. If you've got Disney Plus, you can watch it now, or talk to your local pirate friends. I don't know. If it's not available in your area, I've got a VPN to sell you. But seriously, Proton VPN, really cool. Anyway, so I put a link in the description. Yeah, all that good stuff. But all in all, it's a good movie. It's worth watching. And if you've ever dealt with depression, grief, any of that stuff before, Thunderbolts talks to that, and it's worth watching for that story. So let me know what you think. Drop a comment here in YouTube or on Spotify, or join the Discord. I'm happy to talk to everybody about that. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.